And welcome back, everyone, to more Saints action here. We've got League of Legends coming through for you right now. It's going to be Adam Trolls alongside Josh Pafundi. Got it all together after a great COD matchup. We've got ourselves blue versus red, which is Ottawa Braves on the blue side here. Ottawa, Kansas, for the record, versus St. Clair Saints here with our varsity team. And very curious to see how this matches up already into picks and bans.
Yeah, for sure. We already see the Draven ban coming out from the red side. Draven Lulu bans coming out, as well as the Aatrox Volibear. Now, if you're not familiar, Adam, the Aatrox, pretty well a Ricky target ban. It's going to come out in just about every game, so be prepared. But the Draven ban, interesting coming out from the Saints there, as we all know Draven super potent and in getting a lead and getting active, but it's not something we've actually seen from the past few collegiate teams, at least that I've broadcasted. You know, Draven's been pretty well left open, and a lot of them have just defaulted to these Sivir picks, to these, I think we saw an Aphelios or two as well. It's some very interesting picks coming out, and Udyr ban too. Interesting.
Yeah, and we get the Hecarim first pick here. Hecarim, probably one of the most broken champions on the current patch right now. Super strong, so many different builds you can go for. There's an Eclipse build, you know, there's your typical Turbo Chem Tank build. Very, very potent champion in the right hands. One of those counters, though, that we can see is that Trundle coming through for Alonso here. So we'll see how they end up playing out this jungle matchup. Something to note, though, Hecarim technically still a flex, but top lane is a little bit better now that they took away some of that mana cost. Karthus, though, if that goes into the mid lane, very likely going into Blonde's hands, for those of you who don't know. Blonde, somewhat prominent streamer as well, so very popular at playing some of these slightly off meta picks, but Karthus gets locked in here, so lots of damage to come through already from the side of Ottawa.
Yeah, Misfortune coming in here for the Saints too, and Misfortune, another one of those champs that can kind of flex builds. We know lethality Misfortune is a thing. I believe the crit build is a little more favored right now in the meta, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely Misfortune is one of those picks that's always going to fit well into a team comp. You know, you've got that crazy bullet time, that crazy damage that is going to come out, and it's always potent during those objectives. And Leona coming out as the lock-in for Ottawa U here. Once again, Leona, it's Leona, right? You're going to see it in just about every level of play you're at. Insane lockdown, great engage, and you're always going to be able to find those picks in the lane.
Yeah, and specifically onto something like a Misfortune, you're able to drop down the Solar Flare on top of them very easily. Misfortune, one of the main drawbacks is bullet time, you're standing still. It's really easy to lock you down. Hecarim, Leona, very good champions into that, but interesting flex here coming through. Rafa going to pull out the Soraka, and this is a strong pickup because you can drop the silence down on top of the Leona, so when she goes in with her Zenith Blade, she can't follow up. She can't drop down her ultimate as well, so really good adaptation. This is a pick that has sort of shown up in the LEC a little bit more. Trimby played a whole lot of it, and if we saw how Rogue 3-0 G2 in that final there, we saw how strong the Enchanters can be across the last couple of patches as well in general. But second phase of bans coming through here. Zoe has been a champion that has risen in popularity as well. Big thing to note there, if your allies take your bubbles, you still get your summoner spells.
Yeah, so yeah, it's actually, while the support seems to be already picked at the Leona, the Zoe is actually a flex support pick now, as well as the mid lane, which is something I've been seeing a lot on like a lot of the streamers solo queue games and stuff, is just, you know, someone picking Zoe support because, you know, you're still playing Zoe, you've still got that sleep, you've still got that damage buff from the sleep, and of course you're still going to be doing a lot of damage with your Qs, and you're just annoying at that, to be honest. The Jax ban coming out from you, Ottawa, targeting Ricky directly. Typically, we don't see that Jax getting through. Wouldn't be surprised if we see the Darius last, but the Trin ban coming out from St. Clair. Tryndamere, just one of those champions that straight up breaks the rules of League of Legends.
Yeah, and of course with July 22nd, 2008 in the top lane. No real IGN on that one. We'll have to see what they end up playing through. The Ornn ban, going to be a little bit interesting here. Basically go through crowd control in a can effectively, or scaling in a can when you get something like an Ornn coming through. You get that frontliner, but seems like they're going to blind pick Bakery Boys mid laner here with the LeBlanc. Curious to see that come through already. There is a little bit of lack of mobility on the side of Ottawa here, so potentially just able to get in there, pop that Karthus far away from the team as opposed to them getting in. But once again, it's very risky, but obviously activation games, you want to pick as much comfort as possible, especially into a team as strong as Ottawa.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we kind of didn't get to mention this because we got straight into draft, but contrary to our COD game, this is a preseason game, so this is just going to be a best of one, so we're not getting into a whole series here. So yeah, like you said, it's definitely the time to experiment. It's the time to go with some comfort picks, but and you know, not just kind of slave away to the meta, right? You're not just going to have to pick that great, amazing comp, but the Jace pick coming out, Jace is someone who I feel like has kind of fallen off a little bit in popularity in the past few months here, but definitely another one who could be coming back. Rumble, this is an interesting comp. Do we have Karthus ADC?
It's going to be Karthus bot lane, I think, here. Interesting answer into the Misfortune. The main thing is that the bullet time can only do so much, especially if the Karthus dies. If the Karthus dies, you can't stop the ultimate. There's no way to really prevent against that. You can't get silenced out of it either from the Soraka, so realistically, this could sort of be Suicide Karthus, just going in there trying to get as much damage down. Very interesting draft coming through from Ottawa. This is a team that had a very strong coach in Colomer previously. That tenure didn't last too long, but now they've come back through with Fawn as their coach, with Blonde coming in as that mid laner, sort of the namesake there. Going to be very curious to see how this roster ends up playing out, but of course, last pick here with the Yone, the Y1, always interesting to see how that one plays out, especially into a top lane matchup that could either be Jace or Rumble. Still don't really know, but you've got some flexible solo lanes already from the side of Ottawa.
Yeah, and it's also tough to be that Yone player where you're like, you know, you're kind of deciding whether or not you're going to have to take that MR, take that armor in the rune, so you're able to flex out there, and you know, it's Ottawa's advantage there, as you know, you get that unpredictability, and a very out of the ordinary comp from Ottawa U, before I mess that up once again, but yeah, very, very unorthodox comp to say the least, right? You really threw us for a loop there with those final two picks.
Yeah, and I mean, normally you see these odd picks themselves out of you, Ottawa. I should know of all things, you know, but Ottawa, you hitting us with a little bit of a change-up as well. So very curious to see where everything plays out. Realistically, the Yone also technically a flex pick, but not really so much so with the LeBlanc. So very likely we're going to see Bakery Boy taking that. But of course, activation games still sort of figuring everything out. I believe thus far, Saints have been 3-0 in activation games. So if they get this win here, it's going to look really good, especially against a team as strong as Ottawa here. This is a team second place in the NECC, which has given us teams such as Grandview University in the past. This is a team that got votes for Selection Council to make it to that top 32. Unfortunately, didn't quite make it, but still a little bit of a revamped roster here. They lost their coordinator. They had a couple of player switch-ups at that, so curious to see how Blonde ends up playing this one through, because he's really the name value coming through at Ottawa.
And, you know, we love to see when a team rebuilds and they're able to just instantly get right back into the swing of things, like we saw with COD there in the last game. So, yeah, if Blonde can really step up and be that kind of glue for the team and really bring it back to that former level of play, we're just going to have to see. So it does look like we are going to be getting that Rumble top here. So it is going to be... I'm not actually sure how the Rumble-Yone matchup is. Are you familiar yourself?
Rumble versus Yone is a little bit of an interesting matchup in that Rumble's very good when you're ahead. The main thing is the Flame Spitter. You're always trying to pop that forward.
Yeah.
If you're facing away from them, that's really where the challenge comes through. You need another champion that can really snowball that lead, but you want to be playing forward as well. So I'm expecting Alonso and Zookeeper to really put a lot of attention towards that top lane, especially when you're avoiding some of these aggressive picks up in the top. When you have aggressive picks in the top lane, you want to put that as your focal point. And when you look at those bot lane, Karthus wants to farm it out. Misfortune, to an extent, wants to farm it out with this new Kraken Slayer build that she's been going for. Less so about just the alt one-shot or bullying people out of lane with your Make It Rain. It's really about getting that push advantage on the bot side, not really so much looking for those kills. So top side, a lot of action going to be there, and especially when we look at that mid lane matchup, if it is the Jace versus the LeBlanc, a lot of action to be put there. And, you know, blonded person who likes to play a lot of diverse champions, Jace would be a pick that into LeBlanc gives her a lot of trouble because you've got that ranged form to really poke her out, and when there's the all-in situation, you can just switch forms and look for those plays then. Yeah,
not to mention that disengage as well, which can, you know, if you're tapping them out of the way and like just out of range of that chain, right, it's something that really shuts down LeBlanc in you know, how she's trying to go for the all-in and grab that stun from the chain. So it definitely will be an interesting one to see. But another thing, you know, you said it's a lot of it's going to come down to the top lane. But one thing I have noticed personally is that with such a strong bot lane coming through with Rockboom and Rafa, I have actually noticed that our new jungler Alonso actually been spending a lot of time in the bot lane, which is, you know, very different from last year. Last year we saw a lot of strong side top, you know, get Ricky ahead and just try and snowball this game on a Darius or a Jax, right? But we've been seeing a lot of weak side Ricky Lafleur, where he's really has to pick his battles and really has to just farm up and try and make it towards that late game. Where a lot of the times we would see him snowball like you would see a mid laner go, right? So, we are just having a tiny bit of delays here, but should be getting into this game just a sec. So we are going to take a quick break and rejoin you once we deal with some of these technical lobby difficulties. So we'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
to Summoner's Rift.
And we are into game now. So we already saw the draft there, and we're just going to be getting straight into game here. So can't wait to get started with this one. And we're already seeing some pretty standard starts here. 5-point start from both sides. Typical league stuff.
That typical league stuff, you know, just open it up, a very standard 5-point setup here. Interesting thing is Alonso actually placed or swept the ward down on the bottom side there, I believe, in the bot lane. Curious to see them do that because it's very common for bot lanes nowadays to drop down a ward in one of the bushes to try and look for some cheese, but seems like they have avoided that much at least. So standard 5-point opening. We'll see if anything develops off of that, but for the time being, seems to be just your stock standard opening.
Yeah, I know a lot of these supports like to go drop a ward in that middle bush, right? Back and get the sweeper for the initial for that initial laning phase, so that they're able to still, you know, get the value off that stealth ward at the starting. But it's actually Ricky and Alonso. They're actually going to be missing the initial buff spawn here and be just kind of moving around the river. They actually just went to go clear that ward. Interesting one there from them, but Alonso looks like he's just going to be soloing that buff as Ricky taking a little bit of poke damage from 2008 there.
An interesting opening, to say the least. You can see, ooh, Zenith Blade going to go down, but there's no real kill threat coming through from this lane, at least in the early stages. But Karthus Leona bot lane, quite potent, especially once you get to that level 6. So much damage that can come out, and especially when you get your isolated Qs down, you'll lay waste to anyone who can stand in your path. But thus far, Rock Boom Rafa just playing it a little bit safer. Of note, Exhaust going to come through as well.
Blonde looking for a little bit of damage here on the all-in trade there, but he's actually just going to be able to even out the health without taking much himself. Ricky, we're going to see a typical wet noodle fight in the top lane, so I don't expect to see any crazy kills here, but then again, it is Ricky Yone, so you never know what he's going to pull out in, you know, just out of nowhere here. But moving down to this bot lane, yeah, like you said, those isolated Qs from the Karthus, this guy's got a Doran's Ring, and he's still putting out, I think it was 113 on there at level 1, so it's definitely one of those things where, yeah, like, the damage just adds up, especially because, you know, it's on about a 0.9-second cooldown at level 1, something like that, right? So, Ricky actually taking a lot of damage there from that flamethrower, and could find himself in a sticky situation here. The knock-up going to come through, and the Ignites are ticking each other down. It's going to be Ricky to fall. The Triumph going to save the Rumble there, and he's not going to fall. So Blonde actually falling in the mid lane, though, to a gank from Alonso. Evening it out 1-1 here for both teams.
Yeah, good gank coming through from Alonso there. Gonna have to remember that it's Alonso and not Timmy's at 3 a.m. Obviously, great IGN because
goated name.
It's a great name overall, but you can see just able to come through, take advantage of the fact that Blonde doesn't really have as much mobility on the Jace, especially once you commit really hard to get back out if you don't have your acceleration gate. Didn't want to expend that flash, but very quickly just taking that advantage down there. And honestly, mid lane going to be one of those lanes that you want to get an advantage, and you want to sort of target the known name at that point, but as well give Bakery Boy as much of a lead on this LeBlanc as possible. Super important that you get that acceleration in that champion. But as you can see, CS lead starting to come through on the top side. Might be evened out here as the wave crashes into 2008, but overall looking good for Ricky thus far, despite the early death there. It was just a difference between Ignite and Teleport there, but able to push in that wave, put 2008 a little bit further behind in terms of the golden experience.
Yeah, and Bakery Boy off that first back, they're able to find Dark Seal and an Amp Tone here, but we got Zookeeper coming in for a gank on Ricky. Gonna use that E to get himself out just for a sec, and he's going to find himself safe. Whether or not they opt for the tower dive here really is the question, but it's Alonso coming in. The pillar is going to pop, and he's able to find one, and now he should be able to just beat down this Rumble for the double kill. So that's going to be a 2-for-1 for the Saints as Bakery Boy. He's going to get in here with some crazy, crazy damage as he procs that Electrocute onto Blonde, and he's just about to crash this wave of casters as well.
Incredible play on the top side there, just Alonso having the cognizance to recognize, hey, Zookeeper's up on this top side of the map, I've got to try and help my top laner here. Oh, mid lane though.
Yeah, Rafa coming in with the silence to try and provide possible tower dive there, but it's actually Bakery Boy who's going to find himself fairly low health, and it's the rotation from 3 players from Ottawa Braves who are actually going to be making their way towards this mid lane, but looks like we might just end up seeing a disengage here.
Yeah, really difficult for them to get any room, but look at this. On the bottom side of the map, I believe Rockboom's setting up a freeze for themselves as well, so really going to make it difficult for a Hot Dog Baby to walk up with Trinketer. Even though they've got this sort of engage kill lane at that, it's really tough to break a freeze, especially as a Karthus into something like a Misfortune who can pump out a lot of damage, especially through the double ups. That's the main thing. You get a minion low, you stand too close behind it, you're going to take a healthy chunk from this MF, especially when she's got something like the lethal tempo going for her. But topside here, Ricky LaFleur still not scared to go in for these aggressive plays for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Going in there, getting a lot of damage in initially. Ricky LaFleur, he's just going to... Then this is the one thing you'll notice about Ricky as we go on this season. Once he gets a slight lead, even though he is currently 0-2, he is going to be running with that, and he's going to be harassing as much as possible. And he's just one of those players that likes to duke it out.
Of course, and I mean, especially on something like a Yone, you want to try and look for these kills as such.
As the ult comes in, the E is going to come out as well. The execute going to pop. Perfectly clean kill there for Ricky as he's going to get that CS lead even higher. But Zookeeper should find a pretty quick kill for himself there as well. Nice little cleanup there from Zookeeper. Great little rotation. And starting with the X call as well on the Hecarim.
Yeah, interesting to see the Executioner's calling come through. One thing that was sort of a rushable item in 12-14, 12-15 was actually the full Kempunk Chainsword. What that afforded you was just great gold value. I think it was something like 120, 130% gold efficient, on top of the fact that you get Grievous Wounds. Granted, Grievous Wounds aren't as strong as they were before. Specifically, they nerfed it down. I think Executioner's Calling only giving you 25%, the full completed Chainsword up to 40%, but even still, 40% of Rafa's healing cut doesn't really matter because Soraka, that's her entire kit. It's all about providing as many heals as possible. So we'll see what Rafa ends up doing in terms of the build path first and foremost. Sometimes you'll see them stray away from the Moonstone, go for something like a Shirelia's to give a little bit more aggression, a little bit more engage, but as you can see, mid lane.
Nice little dodge there from Bakery.
Yeah.
You using that W to just dodge that Jace Q on the engage, and it's going to be Ricky just coming in here once again, starting to lay down some damage as his cooldowns are up. The autos are going to be coming down, but man, the Rumble damage still tacks on as well. Obviously, that execute coming out from the Yone, it's, you know, it's going to tack on so much damage when he finally, you know, returns back there, but man, I wasn't expecting the Rumble damage to just stack on like that.
Yeah, and the Wave Clear Equalizer as well. Bullet time going to be expended as well, just to sort of force this Karthus back. But as you can see, Zookeeper already level 7. This is the main thing about Hecarim. You clear so quickly. If you're able to get a couple of kills for yourself as well, you're going to be in really good shape. So that's why they are level 7 already compared to the level 6 from Alonso. But nonetheless, I think that there's a lot of potential to come through from the Saints side, specifically once you get into these team fights. LeBlanc, not the best team fighter, but Yone can set up really well for the likes of a Misfortune. And as you can see, objective trades going across the map. First dragon given over. It's a Cloud Dragon. You know what? Honestly, you're perfectly fine giving that over. Your 7% out of combat movement speed kind of makes ganks a little bit better coming through from Zookeeper, especially on a Hecarim where you enjoy that extra movement speed. But Rift Herald here should be able to secure them a couple of plates if they remember to pick up the eye.
Yeah, they're actually going to get a little greedy for this kill here, but they're going to find it. It's going to go over to Ricky there. 2 and 3 now. We're finding 3, 0 and 1 on Alonso. They're actually going to forget to pick up the Rift.
Oh my goodness. It's activation.
Yeah.
You know what?
You know what? It was probably just a little miscommunication, right? Ricky thought it was going to be Alonso. Alonso thought it was going to be Ricky, and here we are. Yeah, I think it just timed out there.
Teleport though.
Yeah, we're not going to see that, but a gank coming through in the bot lane, and Zookeeper, or Hot Dog Baby, is going to find the kill onto Rafa from the engage from Zookeeper.
Oof.
Bakery Boy coming down. He's not able to get that final bit of damage onto Hot Dog Baby, though. And now level 6 on that Karthus here. We immediately see the Karthus ult coming out. Not enough damage to do too much, but Zookeeper, that ultimate coming through, he's going to be unstoppable. You can't stop him there as he finds the kill. Now he's going to be 3 and 1 on Zookeeper with also 33 CS lead on Alonso right now. So definitely both jungles very strong in this game right now. Very, you know, putting in a lot of value. Zookeeper spending a lot more of his time bot lane, whereas, you know, Alonso has been, you know, supporting this LeBlanc, supporting Bakery Boy, and supporting Ricky a little bit more as Ricky's, you know, been getting dove under tower by this Rumble and things like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how this matchup has played out. First of all, very expected to see the Hecarim with that farm lead. Trundle, especially if you're not going timeout early on, means that your clear is going to be a little bit slower. That's just your champion in general, but Hecarim is still able to find so much impact around the map. It's going to be a point of contention for the rest of this game to see where Zookeeper ends up going, if they're able to find these aggressive plays on repeat, or if it's going to be them falling by the wayside a little bit. This buy that they're going to pick up is going to be really nice, but at the same time, this Rumble on the top side, with this Ignite, not really getting the best of times. Equalizer comes down.
Yeah, what are they going to do? Zookeeper going to be dashing in here, but now it's Ricky LaFleur in the 1v1 with a level lead. Rumble, you got to come back there. Oh, Nate, the ultimate going to come through. Just going to make it away with his life. Ricky wants this. I think he's got that W available. The knock-up going to come through, and the damage is enough.
Got another one.
This is going to be a second one for him for sure. The W going to come through. He's going to return to there, find the double kill in the 1v2 for Ricky. That is where he shines. And meanwhile, Timmy's coming in the bot lane. Alonso finding a nice little tower dive onto that Karthus as well. He's going to be able to pick up a camp. Ooh, that W from Blonde. It's able to cancel Ricky's back before he even walks into that bush. So a nice little shutdown to be grabbed by the Jace there.
But overall, even better shutdown for the Yone to be able to pick up on that top side onto Hecarim of note. Really big to be able to get that out of the way. We see the build coming through. It is the Chainsword first item coming through for Zookeeper, so curious to see what the rest of the build is. You see the tier very likely building into Manamune, building that Mirror Mana to get that single target damage as well, and then from there we'll see what they end up going for. If it is going to be Divine Sunder or something like that for that extra Sheen proc damage, or if they go towards this sort of newer build with the Eclipse.
Yeah, attempting counter gank on the bot lane there, but it's just going to be Rafa trading the flash for that Leona ultimate there, so you know, we're just going to have another disengage here and move on to, it's actually 2008. Is he going to try and, no, he's just going to go for a little bit of poke under there, crush that wave. Rock Boom going to be getting even stronger. You know, I kind of expected Rock Boom to be involved in a lot more fights, because the last time we saw him, he was on Tristan, and he was playing very aggressive. Speaking of aggressive, 2008, dropping that ult onto Rock Boom forced to burn the flash, and now the Karthus ult gonna come out. You know, once Karthus gets a few more items, that's just gonna be death for Rock Boom, as Zookeeper, oh, the stun was not in turret range. That would have been big for Bakery Boy, but now it's Ricky LaFleur. He's gonna be beating down Hot Dog Baby here in the top lane, and what can you do when you're 2 levels down as Karthus? You're playing Karthus ADC, you're up against, you know, a 5 and 4 Yone who's just about to grab his first item. And Trinkiter coming in here just to give some support to Blonde, as it seems like both ADCs are just content with farming on their own at this point in the game.
Yeah, and honestly, Ricky is having the time of his life there. It's a lot playing around that top side, just being able to do whatever they want. Curious to see what the build is. It looks like it's going to be that Immortal Shield bow coming through, but you can see the Zeal already picked up for a little bit more of that crit chance. But yeah, it's been quite a strong performance coming through from Ricky LaFleur. As expected, we said that Alonso's going to spend a lot of time top lane this game, especially in such a volatile matchup, and I think really playing towards the weaker links on the side of Ottawa. Not too worried about this bot lane, because at the end of the day, a bullet time's still going to chunk through the enemy team. Damage as Misfortune, especially with this Kraken Slayer build, going to be able to cut through this rather squishy front line already, but unfortunately these early objectives not going to be that focal point. Weak side bot lane is sort of the name of the game here, despite this Karthus not really having too much of an impact. I want to see what Ricky is able to do in terms of moving around the map and getting kills to the other members on the team, because right now 100% of the kills between the top and jungle here for Saints.
Yeah, and we're seeing him head mid lane. He's got that dash available. The knockup going to come through on Blonde, and the execution might just come out. It's not enough. He wasn't able to grab that last bit of damage to make that execution point pop, but he's going to be forcing Blonde to back, and, you know, forcing him to back while there aren't many objectives up. We do see that rift coming up in 24 seconds, so they may not have the time to rotate back to that, and we see Ricky, Rafa, Bakery Boy, Alonso as well up here towards this top side. Meanwhile, Rock Boom still scaling up in that bot lane, still putting some pressure on down there, right? Because if you're the Braves, you can't forget that you can't just allow Rock Boom to just scale like that.
Apparently so, though, because you know, moving Blonde down to this bottom side, not able to actually catch that wave either. It's going to bounce back first. Means that Rock Boom is going to keep holding this 30 CS lead over the Karthus, and if we want to talk about late game teamfight damage, Karthus provides that at level 16. So does Misfortune at level 16, and we'll see what the itemization that comes through is, because there's a lot of, you know, consistent AP damage coming through, a lot of burst AD, if we want to put it that way, with the Jace, with the Hecarim, lots of upfront burst. So I think we're very likely to see something like a Hex Drinker come through quite early from Rock Boom. Most likely going to see that come through. Well, we can't see the Hex Drinker at least come through from Ricky, but with the shield, though, at least you've got that shield building up for you. Curious to see what ends up happening. This time they remember to pick up the eye, though, so should be able to collect this mid lane tier 1 at some point, and that'll open up the map, open up some more options for St. Clair, specifically around that top side of the map where they've already picked up that tower.
Yeah, the thing about Yone too, going with that Hex Drinker, is like, as Yone, you have very good synergies with like something like a Wit's End as well as even like Spirit Visage. You can just straight up go Spirit Visage. You get those, you get bigger heals off your shield bow, you got bigger shields off your W, and it doesn't force you into the Hex Drinker like a lot of other AD champs. Like, if you want MR as Jace, you pretty much got to go Maw, and that's about all you got, unless you want to grab the QSS there. For a little bit of MR, but really depends on the comp you're facing, right?
And there's nothing really to QSS for the enemies. I mean, there's a Hecarim Fear if you really want to look into that. Leona might be worth it, but you've already got the cleanse built up on Rockmoon. But look at this, Ricky going in for 1v3.
Yeah, let's see what he can do. The ultimate already burned, as
goodness.
There's the double knockup and the execution. And now shields available. Another knockup coming through, but there's the Leona ult, the stun perfectly placed as they're able to shut down Ricky, not before he takes down one of his own on Blonde. Rift Herald going to be taking down that mid turret as well, as the Saints are going to be content with that, keeping their gold lead at 4K, kill lead at 3. However, the Braves, they've still got that dragon lead.
Yeah, and realistically, with this composition, you're going to have to give up those early dragons. This Hecarim just on its own 2 levels up on Alonso, but that's just a virtue of playing Trundle in general. Bakery Boy should be able to get out of this one, but overall, Trundle never going to be able to keep up in levels. Realistically here, we're going to be seeing the Anathema's Chains come through for the likes of this Trundle. It's the Eclipse build coming through from Hecarim as well, so very curious to see what sort of damage comes through. I've heard some horror stories about Eclipse Hecarim. I played Eclipse Hecarim today, it didn't do so well, but then again, I'm not Zookeeper, I'm not the Hecarim god or anything, so we'll find out how this goes, but thus far, it's been a spectacular performance from Zookeeper. It's also been quite the performance out of Ricky Lafleur. Once again, though, the bottom side of the map for both of these teams, very quiet, and that's going to be our focal point for later on. There is a situation where Ricky Lafleur can just run away with the game before we get to that point, but still yet to be determined.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. You see the top laners here and the junglers as well about to hit their second items, about to, hit that power spike. Ricky already has the Mortal Reminder as well. He's going to find himself once again in a 1v2, Rumble going golden, but the shield bow is going to pop it. He just can't live long enough in the 1v2 like that. The healing reduction as well from that Chempunk Chainsword just going to be taking him down, as they're going to be focusing Ricky. He's finding himself 6-6. It's not like he's not finding the kills, but he's always getting cleaned up at some point.
It's what I like to call the solo queue scoreline, where it's just super messy. You're playing the game, that's for sure, but it's not the cleanest of performances. But at the same time, doesn't necessarily need to be. We saw Zookeeper even a couple of times getting caught out, not in the best of situations. Seems like it's going to be a trade of turrets here. This bot lane tier 1 very likely to be traded for this top lane tier 1 as well. But if we look at just the individual 1v1, really difficult for 2008 to even stay anywhere close to what this Yone is going to be able to output. Use that one-time stopwatch. Zhonya's did get changed. Won't say it's a nerf because you get more stats out of it, but the cost of it went up, which means that going to be a little bit longer before this Rumble is able to have that reusable safety. Ricky Lafleur here technically could just go for a solo kill if they so desired.
Yeah, but Saints now using their their lead, their map present here to finally grab a Drake for themselves. So they're able to do that. Ricky, no idea that he's about to get 4-man, but this actually gives the Saints so much opportunity to do stuff elsewhere on the map. Let's see if they decide to capitalize on it. As we can see, 3 players from the Saints starting to move down, and they may actually be able to pick off Zookeeper here, but Ricky finding himself in the 1v4. He's just going to get picked off. Ricky can't catch a break today. Zookeeper forced to use that ultimate to get out, but should be a free bottom turret for the Saints here. And Bakery Boy actually going in for the assassination. Beautiful play from the LeBlanc there. That's what you want the LeBlanc there to do, right? Keep himself 0-0-1 until the end of the game, and then just find himself that one good pick that's going to allow you to snowball your lead even more, because we're seeing a 5K gold lead for the Saints right now.
And realistically, look at what was invested on that top side of the map. Not only was it the teleport coming out from Blonde, but it was the equalizer. It was the solar flare. I was surprised that we didn't even see the Requiem come through as well, but on the flip side of the map, it is a flash burn by Bakery Boy, but not much else. You pick up that tier 2 turret as well as sort of your compensation as well. A little bit extra for the members who weren't able to participate like Rock Boom, but nonetheless, it's still a very strong trade coming through from St. Clair. They're able to burn so many cooldowns on the top side because of the presence of Ricky, and I don't know how much of a point it is to send that many people up there for the Yone, especially at this point, starting to build towards this Infinity Edge while they are incredibly fed. There's other places on the map that you can look to, and thus far, Zookeeper, with this lead, hasn't really been able to perform as much as I was expecting. Started out the game, 4-1, now sort of falling away by the wayside a little bit. We'll see if they're able to keep their relevance, because Hecarim falls into this trap of being way too squishy at this point. Unless you can one-shot some of those frontliners, it's going to be a little bit of a hard game for this Hecarim to continue to stay relevant in.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, they put so much resources into Ricky. After he had already lost his shutdown too, they already grabbed the shutdown onto Ricky, right? Like, they didn't really need to put so much into that. They kind of just lost a bot turret for him. Meanwhile, Ricky's happy about that. He's like, all right, guys, do your thing. I'll take all aggro needed. Rafa, though, finding himself in a sticky situation against Zookeeper, but it's going to be Alonso with the pillar to bail him out, and there's the fear coming out. Oof. And that's what you need to see from the Hecarim, but it's Rafa just about to live, and he actually does live. Nothing's going to tick him down there. So that's going to be so many cooldowns burnt from the Hecarim now. Ricky? Oh, no way he finds himself in another 1v4. He's going to bail out of there, and they're just going to take those cooldowns as, take it as a lead and move back to start pushing some of these waves. But Zookeeper really wants to fight Ricky all game here. Ricky going to be bailing out of there with the E once again. The ultimate saving his life there. Another dash coming out. He's got everything stacked up there, but he's also going to burn everything, flash included. And Bakery Boy, another assassination onto Zookeeper. There's the bullet time, almost taking just about 3/4 of Hot Dog Baby's health there in the top lane. There's so much action on this map right now. Crazy. Bakery Boy going in on 2008 here, but Blonde is ready for that W back
Rafa's
there.
here as well. Teleport.
Yeah, everyone coming in here. Alonso finding himself dangerously low, but Ricky just beating down this Rumble as Blonde is going to find himself in a sticky situation there up against Ricky. Ricky has to bail back on that E, so it is going to be Trinkiter who's going to make it out, but Hot Dog Baby can't even contest Rock Boom, as Rock Boom is just going to auto down this turret.
Yeah, and realistically, Rock Boom hasn't had to group. This is the dream game for Misfortune here, where you're just able to sit in the side lane, split push all you want. It's so difficult for them to win that 4v4. One thing we kind of missed out there as Bakery Boy is collecting that kill onto Zookeeper was Flash. Equalizer used to try and clean up Ricky LaFleur, escapes with 50 HP. Able to stay alive, then teleport back in. Stay relevant there, but Zookeeper's back up on the map here. It is 2 men down for the side of Ottawa, so not sure if they can really find the fight, but Zookeeper's not going to go down without a fight here. That ultimate, if they can get in there, is going to be really devastating.
Yeah, but he's actually going to have to use it to bail out of there, and it's going to be Hot Dog Baby who's going to find themselves down, and it's Blonde. Can they go in? But Ricky, great knockups from Ricky. He's so good at finding them with the tip of those empowered Qs there. Third stack up. Bakery Boy, is he going to be able to make it out? He's playing LeBlanc. You're too sticky you're too slippery as LeBlanc.
Yeah, just being a little bit of a disturber in the backline there, being as annoying as possible. Really difficult for them to shut him down, but Equalizer.
Gonna come out. Zookeeper, he chose the wrong one, but he's... Oh, Bakery Boy living. I actually got a little bamboozled there by Bakery Boy as well. I thought Zookeeper found the wrong one, but yeah, initially he did find the right one. Bakery Boy living with half health, and the Saints are just slowly compounding this lead even more. We see objective bounties up for the Braves now. 500 on the objectives, 250 and 400 on towers. Big objective bounties if they're able to find some.
Yeah, unfortunately, this game is just sort of falling out of their control. A big thing about Jace is that you need to get fed in the early game. Not a champion that scales exceptionally well. A lot of other champions, you have your ultimates, right? Jace, of course, has the stance change, and the biggest thing is your relevant levels 1 through 3 when you can get these solo kills. You have double the amount of abilities of everyone else. Once you get to that ultimate stage, LeBlanc's able to just outmaneuver you throughout this game. You need to get strong enough, fast enough to stay relevant, and that's a big reason as to why Jace sort of fell out of the meta, is because it became less about playing towards the Jace, and it became around playing around this bot lane. regardless here, there wasn't a lot of action around this mid lane, as we can see, despite there being 16 kills even for the side of St. Clair. Only 6 kill participation coming through for the LeBlanc. On the flip side, 3 out of 9 for Ottawa. It's really all been in this later stage.
Brutal.
Oh, man.
This is just brutal. Hot Dog Baby finding himself another death as they just decide to run up there. Ricky Lafleur on the 1v1 versus Blonde. This Jace also so behind at this point. Ricky's just playing with his food at this point. He's got that IE built. The damage is just off the charts, and it looks like he is going to be moving into that Wits End as well now.
Yeah, and Wits End just going to compound that damage. You just get the on-hit damage. It makes it so easy. 2008.
Ooh, can he do something against Bakery Boy? But the Ignite, he knows which one is real, but he's not really going to be in the position to capitalize on it. Bakery Boy every single time just living with 1 health here, forcing 08 to pop the Zonias, and Bakery Boy is actually going to fall. Brutal.
Too greedy at that point. Went a little bit too deep. Ricky going to be able to walk this out. And then again, look at what they're getting around the rest of the map. This Trundle just able to push down so quickly, especially with that frozen domain. Believe it got nerfed, it still doesn't matter. Trundle's such a menace at taking these towers, and if you look at the build path here, not so much supportive as just tanky enough to stay alive. Rafa.
Trouble. Flash coming out from Rafa to dodge that fear there. He's just going to be opting for the back as they do have the Baron buff still available. Rock Boom. And this is where the Rock Boom damage comes out. They've only got 2 items here, but they've been stacking them up all game. And here it goes. Bullet Time coming out. Hot Dog Baby forced to go golden. He cancels it, and Trinkite are going to fall to Timmy's ult there. And he's just going to be chasing down this Karthit as they find all of the kill leads. 2 players down there on the Braves. A third one about to be as his Karthus passes runs out. Zookeeper coming in to find Rafa, and the Ricky's ult actually going to go a little wide there. Blonde, can they find Bakery Boy? I feel like that's been the story of this game. Can Blonde find something on Bakery Boy? But even in that lane, like you said, a lot of the kill pressure that came from the Jace, Bakery Boy was just able to slide away from with just a quick W escape, right?
Yeah, it's been really difficult for the side of Ottawa to find anything at all this game. I mean, 17 out of the 22 kills on this top side of the map. Alonso and Ricky already finding the synergy in the early season, and this is really good to see. I mean, we talked about how... Bakery Boy?
Oh, they are going to fall, and that is... I think that was the first Karthus ult that has finally come through and hit a kill right on the ult there. We've seen some that have assisted in some fights, but I think that was the first one that just straight up found the kill itself.
Yeah, but as we were talking about, Ottawa, this is a team that had a really high season last year. They were really strong, looking for as much agency as possible. Just really looking to continue that trend a little bit, of course, playing in a different sort of conference for themselves, a different competition in NECC for the first time. Really curious to see how they develop over the course of this year. But once again, St. Clair, they're feeling pretty good about themselves, able to bring in some new talent in Rock Boom and Rafa, and thus far, nothing really to complain about in terms of their talent. This bot lane has been very strong in the last 3 games. This game, not really about them, but they're playing this sort of supportive role as well as they can. Bakery Boy, you can see the potential that comes through as well in some of these aggressive plays, but really, it's just the Ricky and Alonso story. Granted, Ricky, once again, 3 members down here.
Once again in the 1v3, but with this build, Ricky could actually find his way out of this now as the healing is available. Holy, look at the damage off of that dash there. The knockups coming through. Trinkite are just going to be beaten down by the Trundle Yon combo here, and now it's Zookeeper in 2008 just on the run. Oh, Rafa taking a little damage from Blonde there, but I mean, at Jace at this point in the game, you should be chunking the Soraka for so much more, and that truly just goes to show how ahead Bakery Boy was in that lane. And 08 now going to fall to another assassination from Bakery Boy there. Rock Boom, lots of damage coming in from Hot Dog Baby, but the Bullet Time comes out. Perfect little pillar there as well. Going to hit the knockup, and Rock Boom is going to find the kill. Rafa, a nice heal to save himself as well, as the ultimate is going to pop. And there's 2 Nexus turrets down, and the Nexus itself being sieged. All 5 players dead from the Braves, and that is once again another really solid game from the Saints.
Honestly, really interesting to see that game play out because, of course, Saints coming in, very new roster, very new look roster. Very difficult to get a gauge on what exactly everyone is all about quite yet. We're still very early on into the season. Same can be said for this Ottawa roster, though, and realistically, I was expecting a little bit more out of them, maybe thinking that Saints might have a little bit of a tougher time, but of course, we get to see that top side of the map and just how strong they were, Alonso and Ricky. That synergy is already baked in there, and it's very rare that you see top and jungle as strong of a synergy. You normally see it jungle mid. I think that's going to come along in time as well, but Alonso everywhere on that Trundle. Gonna have to start to be a pick to watch. It's not the most exciting champion. It's definitely one of those sort of brain off, ooga booga, smack the tower, throw down the pillar and everything. But regardless, so comfortable for Alonso once again, and very curious to see what this roster can do, because 4-0 to start off activation, that should place them in the highest division, and that's going to put them up against some very strong teams. And looking at NECC as a whole, there's a lot of scary teams out there, and I think that taking down a team like Ottawa this early on into the season just sort of sends a message, says, hey, we're for real here. We want to do as well as possible here. We want to make that push for CLOL.
Yeah, and the greatest part about this Saints roster to me so far is that you have so many opportunities to take a lead in that game, right? You've got Ricky Lafleur, the carry over from last year, but all 4 of these new players have shown they have the skill and the game knowledge to just take a game into their own hands. We've seen in the previous weeks Rockboom coming in with, a Bork Tristana pick and just absolutely demolishing the enemy bot lane there. We see Alonso has been so consistent in the jungle. We see 7-0 and 8, low damage numbers from the Trundle, but you're playing tank Trundle, right?
You're playing Trundle.
Exactly. You've done your job. You didn't die, and you threw some amazing pillars on those ganks, and we're opening up so many opportunities. So I'm loving the synergy so far.
Honestly, so am I. I mean, look at the damage charts coming through from Ricky Lafleur. Just 14,000 more damage than anyone else in the game. More than the Karthus, which is normally your damage leader at that. So you can see how comfortable Ricky is on these carry picks. Really makes you scratch your head. Why did they ban Ornn? What was the point? What did you accomplish with that? But nonetheless, being able to save that counter pick for your top laner is so potent, especially in this early season. And, with some of this synergy already coming through, I mean, Rockboom and Rafa look like they're on the same page as well. Both of them have played in similar leagues with Blonde even in the past, and sort of they've always been on different seas, sort of like ships passing in the night, now being able to join together and really find something magical in that bot lane. It already looks good. Of course, this game, absolutely, you can't say anything about it. The Misfortune split push the entire game. Rafa was there at the right time. Not the best sample for us to see on stream, but at least in the past games, we've seen what they can do, and this league roster is really exciting, especially for me. This is my game. I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, for sure. And overall, just a great night for the Saints tonight, right? We're going to start wrapping this up a little bit, but just to recap, we saw COD at 7 p.m. The Saints came in, 2 new players on the roster, 2 returning players, and they came in and were able to grab a 3-0 in their first regular season game of the NECC Star League. And then coming in just now, we got to see the Saints grab their last win to go undefeated in the preseason and get themselves placed in a nice division, like you said. So we're going to be seeing some crazy league competition coming up.
Yeah.
And I know you're excited to see that. I can't wait to cast it with you, whether I'm casting or on the observing or wherever I find myself in the broadcast room. I just can't wait to see it because I love league myself too.
Yeah, this whole season is going to be exciting. I mean, this week of broadcast just sort of giving us a taste at what we're going to see. We saw the Valorant team as well. Haven't seen too much of the Rocket League team. That's down the pipeline as well. But overall, we're looking at quite a season for all the Saints here, and super exciting to be able to bring all that coverage for you.
Yeah. So overall, like I said, great night for the Saints, and we are going to be wrapping up here. So I'm Josh Fundy Pafundi, joined once again by Rare Adam Tolles here. It's been a great night. Thank you to all you viewers out there for watching us. Thank you. Your support is, it's the reason we're here, right? And of course, thank you so much to our broadcast team for making this all possible. Everyone behind the camera as well. We got Ryan, we got Mr. Danners, we got Job in there directing. It's been a great night. They all did such a great job dealing with, some lobby issues that we had in both games here. So, all props to them for making this run so smoothly. So thank you so much, and have a good night, everyone.